Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be doing another recent horror watches episode where I talk about the past few movies in the horror genre that I've watched since the last video. Now typically there are usually 10 movies I like to talk about in these videos, but today it's a little bit more of a bumper episode. There's going to be 15 movies to talk about. It's just been a little bit of a hectic schedule in between, really. And I actually didn't realise how many movies I'd watched since my last video until I looked it up just a couple of days ago. And it was actually 15. So I thought I'll just do it in one video. Now, the title can be slightly misleading with some of these titles. Not all of them are pure horror, but I do think they are still worth talking about because they contain plenty of gore. They are either like crime movies or thrillers, dark cinema if you like, but the majority of these films are actually horror. But I just like to throw the other ones in there, just give me a chance to talk about it. So don't forget to stay tuned until the end as well, where I pick my pick of the bunch. So let's just get into it now with the first thing that I watched. Now first up we have Three from Hell. Now I love House of a Thousand Corpses. I really like The Devil's Rejects, and I don't know why it's just took me this long to get to this second sequel in this little trilogy here, the Firefly trilogy, because Rob Zombie is also a director I really like. I'm a big fan of his Halloween 2 movie, as I know I'm on an island with that, and I've had this on Blu-ray for a while, so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to check this out now, and I quite enjoyed it. It's probably the weakest of the Firefly trilogy. It does have some problems in the last, or what I say, even second part of the story. But this basically sees Otis and Baby Firefly break out of prison and team up with Otis's brother, played by Richard Brake. And the three of them just go on a bit of a murder rampage there. It's not your typical violent movie. It's the Rob Zombie grindhouse violence that if you like, where it's very mean-spirited, it's very cruel on some characters, what these characters are doing to innocent people, and they are very unlikable characters if you like, but that's part of what this trilogy is all about anyway. They are usually the main focus, especially in The Devil's Rejects. It's them who we're following, and it is the same here. I think the movie was fine until we got to about the hour mark and we sort of go to Mexico because they're on the run, and the movie just goes a little bit strange here and there with the cartel coming after them and stuff in this little village where they're holed up in. And I definitely liked the first half of the movie better than the second, but overall it completes a nice little trilogy from Rob Zombie there. I do think Sherry Moon Zombie, who is an actress I don't mind at all, is her most annoying in this movie. I didn't mind her at all in the other movies. I actually quite liked her character, but in this one she did great on me just a little bit there. But overall, not a bad movie. Glad to have finally seen it. That is Three from Hell. Now next up we have When Evil Lks, and this is from October, where we had 8 new movie releases. Now if you want to see my October movies ranked, I'll leave it in the link down below. There are just a couple from that video I'm going to talk about in this video as well, but if you want to see me talk about all the movies I watched in October, I'll leave that in the link down below. But this was a movie I'd heard a lot of buzz about from the horror community, and people got to see it at the cinema early, but then it did finally come to Shudder about 3 weeks later, and that's where I checked it out. Like I said, I'd heard a lot of buzz about it, and you know what? This was a great twist on the demonic possession subgenre. This sees this town where someone has been possessed, and it's widely known around the world that people can actually be possessed, but it's kind of once in every blue moon. But this village has this possessed person there, and they can only be taken out by people who are qualified to take them out and kill them. And this person who is coming to take this possessed person out and get rid of this evil is killed on the way. So these characters decide to just drop her off 3 miles out of town and just think that'll be it. We'll just forget about it now. But it does actually make things even worse for the town they live in, and it starts to spread a little bit there and become a much bigger problem than it already was. Now, I like how this sort of worked as a virus type movie, but with demonic possession. I don't want to say too much more than that if you haven't seen the movie, but I think this was Had some interesting twists and turns. There were some really what the fuck moments, especially one involving a dog, which I was like, holy shit. And it isn't afraid to go all the way. There are some really hardcore violent scenes in this movie, especially some that may involve young children, which mightn't be easy for people to digest. There was one moment where I thought, well, that really is pushing the boundaries there, and the character in the movie looks horrified to what he's seen, and you sort of relate to him. And for me, I just thought this was a really cool horror movie. I think if you're a true horror fan, it's worth checking out. I don't know if the ending quite worked, but I think on rewatch it might come together a little bit more for me. Who knows? I would definitely revisit this at some point, but definitely one of the more interesting horror movies I've seen in 2023. So that is When Evil Lks. Next up, we have Dark Harvest. Now, this was a little bit of a letdown for me because I had heard a few good things about this. I liked the look of it, the concept, but unfortunately, it did fall flat. And this is about this kind of monster that comes out of the cornfields every Halloween in this town. And people, these young boys are in the high school, all have a chance to take it down and become the town hero before it reaches its destination in this church and makes the whole town suffer for a whole year until next Halloween. And now this thing does come every Halloween, but these boys just basically have to kill it before it gets to the church, and then the town will be at peace until next Halloween. But if they don't, it's just going to get worse for the whole year. You know, basically, that is the concept. Girls aren't allowed to participate in this, and the movie centers around this young boy whose brother won it the year before, and his family sort of, you know, he's a hero to the town, he's a hero to his mother and father, and he wants to live up to his brother and say, look, I can do this as well. And he sets out to kill this. It's kind of like a scarecrow type monster. It's CGI to hell, but weirdly the CGI didn't really bother me that much. I usually hate that. There were some creepy moments, some interesting kills along the way. The worst thing about this movie for me is the characters. I hated every person in this movie virtually. There was a young female protagonist who sort of, she's the love interest for the main protagonist. She was fine, didn't mind her at all. Everyone else was a douchebag. They're just unlikable people. I didn't care what happened to the main characters. I didn't care about the town because everyone in it was an asshole. It just threw anything I cared about and these people winning over this monster out of the window, because it really did drag the movie down. And as the movie went on, it started to make up new rules and become a little bit over ambitious. And I'm not going to lie, I got a little bit lost. And I know I'm not the only one. It is a very complex movie in the third act. So for me, Dark Harvest was one of the worst horror movies I've seen all year, unfortunately. Next up, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I'm a huge video gamer, but I have never actually played Five Nights at Freddy's, surprisingly. I do love survival horror, so you'd think I would have played this. Although I did look at video game footage, gameplay of this, and it just looks like you're in a room clicking buttons, which I don't know if that's a game for me. But anyway, it is very popular amongst teens, as the box office proves. This has done so well for Blumhouse, and it's nice to see, I'll admit. We are seeming to get more video game adaptations, whether it be in TV or movie form right now. They've just announced a Fallout TV show, or showed the first images. Really looking forward to that. But I went into this as not knowing anything about it, really, apart from some puppets come to life. And this had a very Willy's Wonderland feel, but I do think it was better than that movie. And we see Josh Hutcherson. I think that's the guy's name, Josh Hutcherson. Sorry if I'm getting that mixed up. I always second guess myself on these videos. Who, he takes this job, he's a security guard, and he's got to sort of man this pizzeria that for 5 nights, or this abandoned pizzeria, just to look after the place. And weird things start to happen, and each night it gets a little bit worse or harder for him. Hence the name, Five Nights at Freddy's. And I think the game, it gets harder as each night goes on. That's the whole format of it. And I thought this was fine. It's very predictable. I think there's a certain character in the movie that I just knew was going to have something to do with it later on. I don't really guess these types of films, but I did with this one. The puppetry, the puppets in the movie look great, But a lot of the kills are off screen, and I think there's a little bit more lore in there that I didn't quite understand. I think if you're a fan of the games, you will get it a little bit more. I think these are novels before they were games or something, or comic books or something. There's a lot more than you think there would be in the background and the history of these games and films. So I didn't quite get all that, if there was any Easter eggs there. It looked like to me at times there was. But Josh Hutcherson was doing fine in this movie, and then the third act where he got really emotional, angry, I thought his acting was really off. I was thinking, oh, you were doing so well until that moment. And a lot of the other characters as well just weren't really doing it for me. There was this relationship with his sister. Was it his sister or his daughter? I think his sister, and this wicked aunt wanted to come and take her, and that story kind of went nowhere, kind of fell flat. It was like, did you forget to write the rest of that part? So it's a little bit of a messy movie, but I can see people who are fans of the video game, I've heard, have been loving that, and I am very happy for you guys. But for me, I thought it was fine. I wouldn't mind seeing another one, which we're probably going to get. It was an okay gateway horror movie, I suppose. So that is Five Nights at Freddy's. Next up, we have House LLC, The Carmichael Manor. I've done a full review for this movie, if you want to check it out down below. And this movie scared the absolute shit out of me. Now, I am not scared of movies, hardly ever. The last movie that really did creep me out was actually the first Hell House movie. This is actually a prequel to that film, but I thought this one was actually scarier than that movie. Overall better? Maybe not, but it is getting up to that level again after a sequel I didn't like. I didn't check out the second sequel. I heard it was terrible, but I wanted to check this one out, and I'm glad to say this franchise seems to be back on track. This follows three ghost hunters who go and stay in the Carmichael Manor, this abandoned mansion, where this family called the Carmichaels lived years ago, and they were all either murdered or some of them went missing as well. And some strange goings on happen there. It's your typical found footage film, but I just think these scare sequences were executed so well. The tension is built up brilliantly, and it never lets you breathe. Like, we get a scare scene where you're just like, holy shit, and then we get another one straight after. It doesn't slow down, basically. There's always something creepy happening, and for me, I was just like hiding behind a pillow at times. I'm not even joking. I had it there in front of my face, and I said to my wife, are you scared? And she was like, yeah, this is a scary movie. Recommended this movie to other people at my work and stuff. They came in the next day and said, oh my god, I was scared of that film. I know there's other YouTubers and stuff who came back to me and said they were quite scared as well. One or two didn't. Lisa Loves, if you're watching, looking at you, that's fine. Horror is subjective, like comedy, like art. It's subjective. Certain things will scare people, and certain things, that thing may not scare other people. But for me, this movie was quite creepy, and yeah, I was quite terrified of this film. I do think it's a very good found footage film, and one of the biggest surprises of 2023. One of the best horror movies I've seen this year. And if you like found footage, look no further than House LLC, The Carmichael Manor. Do recommend watching the original and then this, but you don't really have to. There are story links in there, but you can go into this one blind. But I do recommend the 2015 movie and then watch this one. They are both great found footage films. Next up, we have a bit more of a crime thriller, not really horror, or all the horror elements in there, and people would argue the final scene is horrifying, and that is The Vanishing. Now, I'd heard a lot of people on live streams and stuff talk about this in the past. Looked on my letterbox, people were giving this movie 5 stars and everything, so I decided to pick the Blu-ray up. And I didn't love it as much as those people, although I didn't mind it. I just thought it was, I probably went in with too big of expectations. This follows, I think this is a Dutch movie. It follows this couple who are at this service station, and the female of the couple goes in to get something out the shop while this guy fills his car up, and she's never seen again. And he is scratching his head. He can't work out what the hell has happened. And he just makes it a life mission to find her. And it jumps years ahead and everything. He's even found another woman at some point, but he's still got it in the back of his mind where what has happened to this woman. And the movie takes a strange twist and turn along the way where he sort of finds out, but he needs to do a little bit more deeper of digging to find out. And the thing that really brought this movie down for me is a very, very silly decision towards the end of the movie where I was just like, yeah, did you really fall for that? I don't want to give too much away or anything, but it does lead to quite a horrifying scene. And there is a character in this movie who makes your skin crawl, and you're like, oh, there's something not right with this guy. So I can't say too much without giving it away. It's a bit of an underheard gem, really. You know, for some people, not quite for me, but I do recommend you watching this film. You might see it in a better light than I did. I thought it was fine. I give it 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It was fine. But I didn't love it, unfortunately, like all those people. But I'm glad to have finally seen it because I was very interested after hearing lots of people talk about this one. Next up, we have The Thing from Another World. Yes, the original Thing movie from 1950s. Oh, I wouldn't like to say the year, but it's from the 50s, I believe. And Howard Hawks' production. He just seemed to have his name attached to so many movies with that, that amount of time. Look, I wasn't alive in the 50s. I know you've got to take these films for the time they were made, and I always try to do that. And this started off quite well. I liked how the movie was building up the tension and the story coming together where they found this thing in the ice and, they have to decide what to do with it. All these people in the Antarctic on this base. And the movie just moved at a bit of a slow pace. There was too many characters in this movie to care about anyone. Like, the movie centers around 12 or 15 characters. And everyone's just kind of talking over one another and stuff. But there was some cool moments where this monster was like coming through the door and, the door breaks down and he stood there and they're all gasping. And I thought that was great, like well filmed and stuff like that. But overall, I didn't really like this film too much. It was okay. It was watchable, but one that I was pretty forgettable, unfortunately. And I'm always probably going to go to The Thing now. After seeing this, if I want to watch The Thing, any story in that format, if you like, it was okay. I just think it's a very, very dated monster movie. So that is The Thing from Another World. And John Carpenter shows exactly how to take a movie and turn it into your own version, because he does a lot of things differently in that remake while keeping the core story there, if that makes sense. So that is The Thing from Another World. Getting on to some Eli Roth movies now, guys, and I've done a full Eli Roth ranking if you want to check it out. Some of these films from that video are contained here, but not all of them. I think there's about 3 or 4 here. But if you want to see my full 8-movie Eli Roth ranking, that'll be in the link down below. But first up, we do have Knock Knock, starring Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas. And this sees 2 women knocking at Keanu Reeves' house, who, while his wife's gone away for the weekend, sort of say, oh, we're on our way to a party, but we got lost. Can we come in? Because it's soaking wet outside. And the gentleman that he is, lets them come in, and they sort of force themselves on him and coax him into a threesome. And the next day, they are still in the house, sort of wrecking the place and stuff, and start to make his life a living nightmare. Don't want to say too much more than that, but I was always intrigued why these women were doing what they were doing. I was always interested to see the outcome of this film and how it was going to turn out for Keanu Reeves, because I felt bad for the guy. I mean, I know he sort of cheated on his wife, but he was really forced upon by these women and stuff. And the ending basically ruined the film, because when I found out what the intention was, why they were doing it, I thought, really? And the movie is trying to send a message, and I don't know if it's quite being a female hating film or a male hating film, because it leans towards more male hating, but it makes women look bad as well. If you're sweet on Ana de Armas, though, You get to see her boobs in this film, if that's a plus for you. So, yeah, I didn't mind this movie, but the ending just totally took it down a notch, unfortunately. But still an entertaining one. There's a game show in the middle of the movie that I didn't really like, where they were trying to do this game show sort of thing, and that was not the best scene. But overall, worth watching for Keanu Reeves' acting, if anything, because this is Keanu Reeves over the top. He's done some really serious roles here, and I don't quite know if he was trying to be serious here or unintentionally funny. I don't know, but there was some crazy dialogue coming out of Keanu Reeves' mouth at some point in this movie, and it's just so over the top. It's worth watching just for that. So that is Knock Knock. Next, we have another Eli Roth movie, The House with a Clock in Its Walls. This is probably his most mainstream film, a family-friendly horror movie, and this is more of a fantasy film with lots of horror elements thrown in. It's more of a gateway horror movie for children, I suppose. This sees this young boy whose parents are killed, and he goes to live with his uncle, played by Jack Black. And his uncle is a warlock, and he's living with Cate Blanchett's character, who's actually this witch. And they have to protect something that's in the walls of this house, or they're looking for it, something like that. But this young boy unleashes this evil warlock who used to live in the house, or has something to do with the house. And he comes to try and get this thing from the walls and basically rewind time, so everyone evaporates and it's just him living in the world with his wife. Very, very strange concept, very complex one. I do think this might be hard for children to keep up with at times, but it was fine. It's probably the least memorable Eli Roth movie. It's one I'm probably going to return to last out of all his films, even though it didn't come last on my ranking. But the best thing about this film was Jack Black and Cate Blanchett's chemistry, the way they bounce off each other. They're both wonderful in this movie. Cate Blanchett is just an elite actress now anyway. But them two are the fun factor in this movie. They're the entertaining factor. They are fun to be around. But overall, wasn't a bad movie. Just one that I'm probably not going to remember too much about in a few months' time, put it that way. So that is The House with a Clock in Its Walls. Next up, we have Cabin Fever. This is a film I watched years ago, and I thought it was okay. I didn't love it or anything, but I thought it was fine. However, on this rewatch, I did see a lot of glaring problems with this film, but I still enjoyed it. This sees a bunch of friends going to this remote cabin, and this stranger knocks at the door, and he's quite sick, and they all end up catching this fever, and it's this disease that sort of makes your skin peel and sort of deteriorate you from the outside to the in. Fun concept. I think the characters don't help this movie. There's a lot of weird dialogue. And this remote cabin is hardly remote, because there are characters just coming from left, right, and centre, just knocking at the cabin. They're having a campfire outside at one point, and Eli Roth playing this other character just turns up at the camp with this bunch of weed, and there's just like no point to his character whatsoever. I just think the writing is totally off in this movie. However, there are some fun kills. There's lots of fun gore. Like, there's people who are just basically getting wiped out by this virus and just getting smashed with hammers and stuff to kill them off. There's plenty of blood and violence in this movie. It was just very strange. Like, I think I could go back to this again and just pick out even more strange things that this movie has. Like, there are at least 3 points in this movie where people just say, that's gay. Like, there is this two characters who kiss, and this guy has been sort of chasing her for a while now, and he goes, oh, does this mean that we can start dating? She goes, don't be gay. And then there's this other point where this guy's going to shoot some squirrels, and he goes, why are you going to shoot squirrels? And he goes, because they're gay. That's the type of dialogue we have in this movie. It's just a very strange film. But overall, it's a fun virus type film, if you like. So that is Cabin Fever. Next up, we have Eli Roth's newest movie, Thanksgiving, which I went to see at the cinema. And you know what? I had such a fun time with this. This potentially could be my favorite Eli Roth film. On a few rewatches, this is a film I will definitely return to. And we see this killer called John Carver going out to get revenge on some people in the town who stormed this big mega store on Black Friday, and a few people were killed, and he wants to get like revenge on them for being assholes, basically, a year later when it comes to Thanksgiving again. I thought this movie was full of brilliant gore, some really creative kills. This all stemmed from a Grindhouse trailer that Eli Roth done. If you remember the 2007 film Grindhouse from Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, there was a few trailers in the middle of them two features, and one of them was Grindhouse, and there's a kill on a trampoline in that trailer. It happens in this movie. Really happy to see Eli Roth do that and stick to his initial thoughts on what he had, the vision he had. John Carver was such a unique looking, well, not a unique villain, but one that I thought looked cool, and you know, I just think there's potential for this character to go on, and hopefully we'll get some sequels and stuff. We don't have too many slasher icons on the uprise apart from virtually Art the Clown, and Megan probably might be one, so it would have been nice to see John Carver shoot up there. By the way, John Carver is the name of this killer that the sound refers to. That isn't revealing who the killer is. That's just what they call him. And for me, I thought this was such a fun time. The comedy is balanced very well with the horror as well. Like 1 minute I was laughing my ass off, and then the next minute there's a brutal kill happening, and I just kind of threw me off. I was like, holy shit, I was laughing 2 minutes ago. For me, I just had such a fun time. It's a ridiculous, cheesy movie that will probably sit very well in the 80s if it was made back then and not made in 4K pristine. If it was a little bit rough around the edges, it would just fit so well in the 70s and 80s slasher craze there. It felt exactly like one of them films. It felt like it was paying homage to them. I've done a full Thanksgiving review, guys, down below if you want to check it out. But I thought this was a great movie and one of the most fun times I've had in the cinema in 2023. So that is Thanksgiving. Next up, we have another old monster movie. I think this is from the 50s as well, if I'm not mistaken, and that is It Came From Beneath the Sea. This is a movie about a giant octopus sort of coming towards this town and starting to wreak havoc on the town. Now, I like this a little bit better than The Thing from Another World, I'm not gonna lie. It was a film of two halves. Now, we see these scientists and stuff experimenting and trying to get to the bottom of what this thing is and where it may be hiding, and all that side of things was good. I liked it when the monster was finally revealed, and even though it looks very dated, they did a great job back in the day of this octopus just wrapping its tentacles around bridges and pulling boats underneath the water. I thought that looked awesome. There was just a romance story going on here that I did not care about, and it's probably played heavily on about half of the movie. And I was just like, yeah, I don't care about these human characters. They're not really connecting to me. I thought the guy was a little bit of an asshole at times and very pushy. I just didn't care about that. So every time that part of the movie came on, I was like, oh yeah, are we going to get back to the octopus now? But when the octopus, the giant squid, should I say, things happened, that was awesome. I loved watching all that. So not a bad movie, just has some problems in the human character department, which just seemed to seep into modern cinema as well, with Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and King Kong, and no one cares about the human side of things in their movies. If they were done well, we would, but they never are. So they still haven't fixed that, 80 years later or something. So yeah, this was fine. Glad to have finally seen it. I was just in the mood to watch one of these films, and this was the one I picked. Next up, we have The Blackening. I was meant to go to the cinema to watch this, and something came up and I had to cancel, and I just haven't had a chance to finally get round to it. But I've always fancied this movie. I thought it looked really funny from the trailers, and it was fine. Look, there were some really funny moments in this. There were some really fun characters to be around. And this is basically a slasher movie that just involves black people, and it plays on the horror tropes that they are always involved in. Like, the tagline is, we can't all die first, because commonly black people are killed first in horror movies, or they used to be a lot, and there's a lot of just black humor jokes thrown in there. Now, for me, I did find a lot of this funny. There was a lot of things that I didn't quite get, and I don't know if that was really the audience. Me was the audience for that. I don't know. But there was a board game that these characters find, which is a really creepy board game, I'm not going to lie. And I was like, oh, I like this. I didn't know that it was all centered around that. And I liked all that, where it was asking all questions, but all the questions were to do with, the black community and stuff like that. So there was some of them I weren't really getting. Also, the game cheats a little bit later on, which took me out of it. And I thought, oh, so these characters can just basically die because the game's cheating. I didn't quite like that. Predictable ending. I guessed the outcome and who the killer was going to be. And like I said earlier on, I never usually guess all that sort of stuff, but there's 2 movies in this that I did guess, sorry. Thanksgiving wasn't one though, I didn't guess the killer in that. So, for me, I thought this was fine, give me a few laughs, nothing spectacular. So that is the blackening. Next up we have The WAP of Becky. Now this isn't a horror movie really, but there was so much gore in this film that I thought I'd just throw it in anyway. Now this is a sequel to a movie called Becky, which was thrown on Netflix in about 2020, and we finally got a sequel to it because a lot of people seem to like that film. And we see Becky, who is now traveling on her own after losing her father and her stepmother, or his father's wife, in the first film, and she is kind of on the road on her own, and she's found shelter with this woman who she's kind of took a liking to. And these people break into the house and kill the woman. And she goes to get revenge on these people. And they are like extreme sort of, I think it's the word fascists or whatever. And they are all holed up in this house because they've got a big thing that they're going to do the next day. And they're all getting prepared. And Becky comes to ruin their plans, basically. Now, this leader of this group is played by Sean William Scott, who you'll remember as Stifler in American Pie. And he's like the bad guy in this movie. And you know what? I would love to see more of him in this role because I thought he was awesome as the villain. I didn't quite ever picture him playing this character, but he done such a good job. He was really tense to be around, and the way he stared at people and stuff when he knew something weren't quite right. You were like, oh, holy shit. And I just thought this movie absolutely flew by. It's 83 minutes long, but it just keeps delivering on the entertainment factor. Some great kills here from the character of Becky. She's just this badass who's taking these people out one by one. She's only like a young girl, and these are all like these big juiced up guys with machine guns and stuff like that, but it doesn't faze her whatsoever. And some of the kills in this movie were awesome. Like one with a machete because he told her what his son's name was hilarious to me. And I just had such a fun time with this one. A way better movie than the first. I didn't mind the first, but this one was just a superior sequel in every way for me. So I definitely recommend checking it out. That is WAP of Becky. And last up, guys, we do have yet another Eli Roth movie. Now, this stars Lorenza Izzo in The Green Inferno. Now, Lorenza Izzo, I forgot to mention, is actually Eli Roth's wife. And it's kind of like Rob Zombie and Sherry Moon Zombie all over again. She stars in a lot of his movies. She's one of the girls who knocks at the door with Anna de Armas in Knock Knock. She's in The House with the Clock in those Walls as the young boy's mother. She's in quite a few of these films. Now, I think she's actually quite good in this one. It's probably the best role that she's given, I think. And she is this sort of activist who wants to save the rainforest. And she joins this group in university who are going to protest in the rainforest where they're all getting taken down by these bulldozers and stuff. But things start to go to pot when their plane crash lands in the middle of the rainforest and they are taken by this tribe of these people who live in the Amazon, basically, who are a bunch of cannibals and decide to kidnap them, throw them in this jail and slaughter them one by one. Now, it is a really good take and pays homage to the films like Cannibal Holocaust back in the day, Cannibal Ferox. I think Eli Roth was definitely going for that tone in a more modern setting, and I think he nailed it, to be honest. And there are some gruesome kills in here. One of the most gruesome, in fact, probably the most gruesome kill in any Eli Roth film, where this guy is sort of dismembered from limb, mutilated in front of his friends and eaten by the cannibals. And I was like, holy shit, this film goes for it. Again, Eli Roth likes to throw comedy in his movies, and there was some moments in this film, I don't know if they were intentional comedy or trying to be deadly serious, but I was like, really? Has he really gone there? Like, At one point, there's this dead body in the jail cell with them, and this guy who's a stoner decides to stuff this dead body full of weed to try and knock out these cannibals, really, so they can try and plot an escape. And all it does is make the cannibals even more hungry and give them, the munchies. So they try and break into jail to get even more food. It's quite hilarious to watch. There is one of the most grotesque characters in any horror movie I've seen in this. The leader of this gang, he's just kind of jerking off while they're all sitting in the jail cell. And he's like, I gotta release some stress. It's just like, holy shit, what the hell is Eli Roth doing here? But I did enjoy this movie. It's a very simple film. It's got a lot of problems, like a few of his movies, like Cabin Fever and Knock Knock. They're enjoyable movies, but they do come with the problems and not the best writing or dialogue. But I'm not going to lie, I did have fun with the Green Inferno. So that is the final movie on this video. Hey guys, now it's time for my pick of the bunch. And for my pick of the bunch, I'm going to actually go with Thanksgiving. Not because it was just a big new cinema release or anything, but I did generally have the best time with that movie out of all these films on this list. A massive surprise for me. I did go in expecting to like it, but it is actually in my top 10 movies of the years up to now. So that shows how much I like that film. So that is Thanksgiving, my pick of the bunch. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out some of the reviews I've done on these movies down below, my Eli Roth ranking. And if you want more recent horror watches where I just talk about random horror movies, I'll leave that in a link down below as well. What did you think of these films, guys? Are you interested in any of these? Have you seen any of them? What did you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know, and we can get a discussion going in the comments. Thanks so much, everyone. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.